let me say, she's a complete African woman, if you understand, from my point of view. Please, with a big round of applause, please let's welcome Jacinta Okanse. Please, you can do better. You can do better. You can do better. Please, people, your master of ceremony.
Okay.
Madam,
Thank
please,
you.
your audience.
Thank you, Pre-MC. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you again. Please, how many of you were at the Influencers Conference last year? Nobody. Fresh. Okay. Mr. Jefferson. So all of you are newbies. New cats in the building. You're welcome to this year's Influencers Conference. My name is Jacinta Okanse, and I'm a Ghanaian. Yes, I'm Ghanaian sometimes, Nigerian sometimes. It depends on which president is ruling. So today I'm happy to be here. Last year I had the honor of moderating the conference. And so when they called me this year, I'm like, okay, miss, I'm doing something nice. And as a young person, I ask myself sometimes, who is influencing you and what are they really influencing you to do? And I know it's a question a lot of sensible young people should be asking themselves, because in an era where there's a lot of influence going on and people are quick to jump on the bandwagon, people are quick to follow trends, follow whatever is going on, I think it's a conscious question we need to ask ourselves. Who is influencing you and what exactly are they influencing you to do? And what is even the power of these influences and how far, what's the extent to which influencing can go? And that's why when Influencers Conference calls, I think it's a big opportunity for us to sit down, discuss, deliberate, gist, feel free. It's not a war zone. This is actually a safe space to ask questions, to say whatever you want to say, and be rest assured you'd get the responses that you really, really deserve. Am I making sense? Clap for me. Okay, without speaking plenty more English, I'd like to move straight to introducing our keynote speaker for the day. I mean, this man, na person we gather level. And Influencers Conference, we're not just going to pick somebody to come and talk to you just because the person can speak. We're picking people with experience, with leverage, that have the cause to actually speak to you about influence and what it entails. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a resounding applause. I'm getting signal. Come closer, Mr. Olu. Please put your hands together for Mr. Olu. In case you see me talking and stopping and looking there, just know that Mr. Olu is giving me signals. Okay? Okay. So, who are we going with? All right, so I'm supposed to engage you before the ambassador gets. He's in the building, but you know how important people are. They have to take their time. Maybe by now the security is trying to make sure that the environment is secure. Okay, so on that note, let's talk about something else. Is there anything anybody would want to ask me personally about influencing? I've said a lot today. Is there something you want to ask me? I'm ready to answer questions at this moment. Mr. Jefferson Saki is here. He's part of the men, if you know what I mean. And I see, okay, good. Please put your hands together. Is that the kind of applause that an ambassador deserves? All right. So on that note, it's my honor, privilege, pleasure to invite our keynote speaker. He'll be speaking on the topic, using influence to create an unparalleled journey for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, the UN Ambassador Coordinator to Ghana, His Excellency Charles Abani. People are confusing me.
wonder if this technology fails, or if I fail on this technology, how good will I be for the rest of this? So, good morning, everybody. Can we take it that all protocols are duly observed? Normally in the world I live in, we have to start first by greeting the front row individually. So I won't do that, but I will say it's a privilege for me to be here, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to share some of my thoughts about this. I think influencers are really important people in the work that we try to do around ending poverty and inequality. And young people, and I see a room full of young people, are particularly important in that journey. And really, if you're going to be change makers, influencers, whatever you want to say, actually the audience we really want to reach is 70% of this continent, and you make up 70% of the continent. And whenever I speak, I always say the youth are the future, but the future is right here, right now. And so you need to grab it. And so first of all, give yourselves a round of applause for being here, because this is important and you are playing a significant role. But who am I? I'm really not an influencer in the ways in which influencing is described today. My best following on Twitter is 6,000. So I'm down there with the minnows, not really important at all on the scene. But I'm going to share some of my perspectives, because I think in the work that you do, it's going to be really important that you are engaging with these issues, whatever you decide to do, whether you want to promote Nespresso or you want to change the world, you have a big, powerful idea that you really want to influence the world with. I think these things will all help you in what you do. So first of all, what is it? What is influence? I think, personally, that influence is the ability to make people do things that they would not ordinarily do in its best form. So let me give you my favorite example. When the walls of apartheid came crashing down in 1994, Nelson Mandela was free. And if you're a black person living in South Africa, you said, it's now our turn. We're going to chase these people right out of this town. We're going to really take over South Africa. We're going to run this continent because we're going to run this country because it belongs to us. And a man came along, the man who had been jailed for 27 years of his life by those same people, and introduces an idea called the Rainbow Nation, in which everybody gets to coexist. And suddenly this revenge that you've been filled with for 50 years of oppression, you suddenly have to rethink it from the ground upwards. And you actually do think about it, because remember, the idea of an influencer is that you bring an idea, but it's only really powerful if people actually hear it and actually act on it. And so that's your measure, that's your bar, by the way, as you aim for success. It's the ability to influence people, I guess, to do things that if they woke up in the morning, they typically wouldn't do. It wouldn't occur to them to do it. Whether it's to buy an espresso instead of drinking their normal Nescafe instant coffee, or it's to particularly follow a particular fashion style or approach, or it's to think differently about a problem that traditionally they have thought about in a particular way. And we live in a really complex world. At its biggest, and certainly some of the issues that we have to grapple with are what are best described as wicked problems. Wicked problems. We have one that just emerged in this sub-region a few weeks ago. On the one hand, we all believe in democracy. And democracy is a powerful and good thing. It gives people choices. And in Ghana, we know this really works very well. But suddenly we're faced with a coup. First in Mali, then in Guinea, then in Burkina Faso, and now in Niger. So, what are we going to do? And we're in the middle of that now, and I'm sure you're all following the debates about, are we going to invade Niger? Are we going to talk to Niger? That problem is complex because it depends on where you stand. You will see something different. I don't know how many of you watched a movie called Vantage Point. Follows 7 people watching a particular incident and tells you their story. And if you listen to it from those 7 people's points of view, you hear totally different stories. So remember, as an influencer, you're trying to stitch together the commonality and get people to a consensus about how they're going to deal with things. So I'm not going to talk about the psychology of influencing. I've seen the people who are on the list. Most of you are super qualified to be speakers on how you do influencing. And so I'll say a few words about that, but actually I'll leave a lot of that and the details and some of the technical stuff to those who are best placed. They always say practice is what actually drives something. If you don't know, talking about something in theory doesn't really make sense. The practitioners will tell you. So I'll share a few thoughts, but I really wanted to focus on, so what is it really about? Because I gave you an example of leadership, and I think actually influence is leadership. And every leader is looking to influence somebody. And you're not actually a leader until you can influence somebody. And many leaders also have authority. The president of Ghana is a leader who has authority. So sometimes even he doesn't even need to influence you again. Because he has authority, he can tell you what to do. That's not influence. The real influence is when you have no authority whatsoever. You turn up in this room and say to everybody, please, let's leave the room. Please all stand up. Please all sit down. And they do. You have no authority to actually tell them to do this, but you've become influential because you are now able to communicate with them in a way that makes them do something that you suggested for them to do. So really, first of all, you need an audience. And then, of course, you'll have all your enablers, and I'm sure there are lots of people here who talk about technology and the power of technology. I'm going to leave that stuff for them because actually they're far more competent. I can't tell you how to improve your Twitter capacity or to reach more followers, but I can tell you about leadership. And so I've chosen to focus on leadership. And this morning I decided to just look at my social media and see what was on it. And I screenshotted 3 things from people I think are influential. And bear in mind that we all come from different backgrounds. So one of the people you may find influential, I may not necessarily think they are influential. But let me share those screenshots. Let me share the first one. And it's really important because what I want to talk about then is what do you need to have? What are the ingredients you need to have to be a leader and an influencer, and I'm going to stay with today's theme, to create an unparalleled journey to the future. Because if that's what you're really aiming to achieve in your work and ultimately get paid for it, then that's what you need to have. So I actually saw one of my friends on Twitter this morning, and she said to that guy, sorry, I'm Nigerian, by the way, so sometimes my examples will come from Nigeria. She said, Ogami, but we can have an arrangement. And I said, what the hell is she talking about? So I went back to the Twitter feed to look for what she was responding to. And I saw a comment from Joe Abba. So Joe Abba is somebody who has like nearly a million followers. started out, we're pretty much peers in career, but he's become what I call an influencer. So here's what he tweeted this morning at 9 o'clock. He said, someone said I should go and register for Twitter monetization, unblock all the people I have blocked, say something really controversial or silly, get dragged for days, which will result in a lot of impressions and engagements, and then get paid by somebody or the other. You don't reach like that. That was his tweet this morning, right? So I guess it speaks to the first thing that I really think. I'm going to just list a few qualities and try and speak faster than I would normally speak on this matter. The ingredients that I think you need to have if you're going to be an effective influencer. And I think they're called to something somebody else may use. They'll talk about brand. What's your brand? But I think these things are the invisible things that actually go towards making your brand. So the first one is you need a purpose. Why? Why am I doing this thing? Am I joining it because I hear say people, they make money? People make money from this thing, so I better find my way, grow my followership. By the way, that leads me to the second thing I saw this morning. Somebody sending stuff around about a place called Breezy's Beach Resort. And the thing ends with, I beg, please follow our page so we can increase awareness. So he's doing some marketing, and he believes that the more people who follow, the more it will come into the stream. That's all the technical stuff. But at the end of the day, he's not saying, come here because this is an amazing place. He's saying, come just follow me because of that might increase. So already, why am I doing this? And the moment you do this, I'm not really going to follow you and take you seriously because you don't even know why you're doing it. So what's your why? And you need to ask this question really about yourself. And by the way, there's no fixed answer. Your why will change as your life changes and as your sense of purpose changes. The one thing I can tell you right now is it won't be because I want to make money. It will be because I want to achieve something, I want to create something, I want to change something, I want to do something different. And I always say to people, money follows good ideas. It's not the other way around. And you may be lucky to jump on a bandwagon of good ideas and become a beneficiary of it. But the ultimate thing you are looking for is why am I doing this? If you get that right, you will be good. The second thing you need is a set of values that drive you. One of my core ones is integrity. I have a number of them. I'll talk a bit about them as we go through this. But integrity will always keep you. It will be your true north. It will give you a sense of where you're going and why you're doing what you're doing and where your red lines are. Will you promote X or Y? You've become influential and some marketer comes along, EcoBank, anybody, and says, hey, you reach a big audience. I need you to tell them this story. You better be asking, what's the story? Because if you don't know what the story is, and you just say, well, I have 2 million followers, they all listen to me, they're young people, they don't know what they're doing, I can bend their brains any which way I like, you'll end up, it will damage your brand. So, and there's something called a credibility gap, and we're just talking about this, Harriet, before we came in here. If you say too many things, you'll begin to create what is called dissonance. Dissonance means the way you behave and the things you say, they don't come together. And then you create doubt. And you undermine trust. And at the end, I'll tell you about trust. And why actually the first thing you're building is trust. Because when people trust you, they will follow you. Otherwise, you will have no following at all. And so these two first things I've told you are probably the most important. Why am I doing this? What are my values? And what do I want to achieve? The third one is closely linked. It's called courage. Because if you're not norming, and you know, there's a lot of stuff out there that's the norm. if you're not norming, you're going to have to walk a path that people don't normally tread. So you need courage. You need courage to be able to do it, to articulate yourself and organize yourself. But beyond that, you need courage of conviction. Courage of conviction is, I believe. Because often some of the things you're trying to say, they aren't empirically provable. They're actually an idea, particularly if you're moving an idea that the world can be a better place. They say, hey, what do you know about the world? We've tried this one before. First World War, Second World War, Ukraine, Russia, now Niger. What is it new that you're telling us? But you have to believe. And some of the people who are absolutely expert at this, so when you look to people like me to give you some ideas, also look to places where people who are powerful in conveying courage of conviction. You'll find them in a church somewhere, I'm sure. Pastors who can screech these things and make you believe things that even they themselves don't believe. So have courage, and have courage of conviction. But maybe just before that, let me just talk about, who are influencers. As you all sit here, many of you, I'm sure, are already having influence. But in that space, you'll all say, I'm doing good. But one person's good is another person's bad. And so I always say, in any space, whether you're in banking, even in the UN, certainly in the world you live in, there'll be the good, the bad, and the ugly. And remember these things, courage of conviction, your sense of values, your sense of purpose, these are the things that are going to enable you to figure out what is good and what is bad. And that perspective is really quite important. Because even if we take this small Niger case we're talking about right now, your idea of good here, democracy is good, is one set of ideas. There are another bunch of guys who say, listen, unless we're under a certain kind of rule, it's bad. And so your good is often somebody else's bad. And so actually part of your job is to figure out how you're navigating that space and straddling it, because you're not trying to influence just those who believe in democracy. You're actually trying to convince people who don't believe in democracy. And so if you're good at singing to the choir, that term is about your ability to tell people who already believe what you're saying that this is the truth. You're only partially successful. It's when you get people who are not in the choir to start singing like they were in the choir. That's when you've had influence. But to do this too, you need, the fourth piece I'm going to talk about is knowledge and understanding. So you need knowledge. I could tell you tomorrow, EcoBank, maybe you consider it. I can say I'm the UN resident coordinator, the UN ambassador. I think EcoBank is the best bank. Do I know that for a fact? Probably not. And if challenged one day by somebody, say, why did you say EcoBank was the best? What do you know about EcoBank? Just taking this benign, not saying they're good or bad, by the way. And how does your knowledge help you to not be part of the problem? Because many things that are said to be truths today are themselves disinformation. So are you just spreading someone else's disinformation? Have you thought it through? If you subscribe to it and buy it, do you buy it because you know or because someone said? And we live in this continent, so some of our slangs and language can often be the same. They said, what they said means you're already externalizing, you don't really know, I don't really know, they said, they told me, and already you're spreading someone else's disinformation. So some people may even sit and say, influencing, what the hell, it's not even hard, no be Twitter. I just grab my Twitter and I do. If you don't invest energy and knowledge in what you're trying to propagate, you'll quickly stumble and your brand will also stumble. And so closely linked to that, and maybe there's no order to some other things that I wanted to say, you therefore must be excellent. You must do your due diligence. You must understand what you're going to say. You can't just say it and say because it's a common good, therefore, or someone is paying me, so I will say it no matter how hard the evidence doesn't go in my favor. And even if you want to make a case, then at least gather your evidence together in a way that's going to work for you. Otherwise, it won't work. Another principle of excellence, and I used to work for an organization, and I loved that value of excellence. The tagline they had was never settle, which means that excellence is not actually a destination. It's a journey, and it's a continuous journey, which means even when you get really, really good, become excellent. When you get excellent, become excellenter, if there's a word such as excellenter. So keep doing it. And embrace this complexity and noise. If you sit in my generation, although upstairs here I'm 27, by the way, just so you know, all you see is noise. In fact, first of all, it was just Facebook and then Twitter, and then along came Instagram, and then along came all the other Snapchats, which my daughter said, if I ever see you on Snapchat, I'll kill you. So I never went there. And now we have Threads, and even this morning, or yesterday, I was tweeting about Kofi Annan's 5-year anniversary of his death. And then I said, hey, but I spoke to those people on Twitter, or on X as it's called now, but I didn't speak to the people on Threads. So you can spend a huge amount of time kind of running. So it's very complex, and there's a lot of noise out there. How do you understand that complexity? Because if you don't understand complexity, then you won't be able to navigate that. You will just be part of the noise. Part of the noise, cacophony is the word. When a band stands together and they all say, okay, play whatever is in your head, you know they're not going to rhyme. So you have to agree the song first before everybody plays to the song. So how are you going to navigate this increasing place of complexity, of divergent views, of diversity? Just as I've explained, we want net zero for climate change. We want young people's voices to be heard. I want you to buy my biscuits, not their biscuits. So it doesn't really matter what you're talking about. How are you going to embrace that diversity, understand it and respect it? Because if you don't respect it, you're going to lose key parts of your audience straight away. That's really, really important. And the whole idea of ambiguity. We're actually in quite a tumultuous time. Things are changing so fast that it's actually scary. We have AI that is moving so fast that actually influencing will soon be possible by artificial intelligence, by bots. Who are you? What are you going to add to that mix? So if you don't even get that ambiguity, right now, I asked for somebody to write me a few thoughts about this. They actually generated a full speech for me on this thing from ChatGPT on influencing. I could have read it for you, but I chose to speak instead. So in this exponentially changing world, where there are a myriad of ideas and things happening all at once, how am I going to influence? What am I even going to influence about? What are the countervailing things? Can I even see over the hill, over it? Because what you see now is it's coming like an articulated lorry moving at 200 kilometers an hour. What appears you can't even see it. It's suddenly right here in front of you. So you have to get ahead of that and be right out there on the horizon and beyond it to see what is coming down the line. Otherwise, some of the things you say today, you lose your credibility in a minute because it's overtaken by events and things that are happening. So for those of you who did think, this might be an easy job, an easy way to make money, wake up, good morning. Avoid dogma. I guess you know what dogma is. There are things that we know, that we know, that we know. There are, indeed, that if you don't breathe oxygen, you'll die. But on ideas and social norms, actually, everything is up for grabs. Everything is up for grabs. And so the moment you plant yourself in a position of dogma, there are many dogmas out there, then you will quickly become a victim of that dogma, and your influence will be built around that dogma. I know I don't have a lot of time, but I do think stories are important, and I like challenging stories. So here's one. In the story of David and Goliath, who was the underdog? If you believe it was David, raise your hand. David, the underdog, the one who was going to get beaten to shit. David, who believes that Goliath was the underdog? Not a single hand raised here. There's actually a book called, Malcolm Gladwell is one of my gurus. I read his books a lot. He has a book called David and Goliath. Here's an alternative story on David and Goliath. And it challenges the dogma of faith. So here goes the story. Goliath actually was struggling with a pituitary gland problem. His size, it's a function of a pituitary gland, sorry, I don't know that word very well. Pituitary gland is somewhere here, that causes you to grow big and large. Has a number of side effects. One is that you'll be slow and lumbering. Two is that you have poor eyesight. So now you know some facts that you didn't know before. David, by contrast, small guy, shepherd since the age of 5. Fending off and fighting off wolves and things to keep his sheep in one place. And over a number of years, I perfected the art of using his catapult. You see now, we now have a different war scenario. So what David decided was, I have the skill. This man, if he reaches me, he will kill me. But if I get him quickly, from distance, outside his grasp, I will be able to defeat him. Which is exactly what he did. He used his slingshot from a long distance, stunned the guy. The guy didn't even see the thing coming because he has an eyesight problem. He couldn't see the guy because he was still at a distance. Stunned him, he fell to the ground, slow and lumbering. The guy got there, chopped off his head. Who do you now think was the underdog? I think the underdog was Goliath. He looked like he was going to be the winner, but he didn't have any strategies and tactics, so he was going to lose that battle, unless he fought you and I, who had no particular skill or competence or anything. So dogma can often close your eyes to the possibilities. Another thing, and I'll talk a bit about it, is whether you're arrogant or you're humble. Because arrogance will lead you to make assumptions, and usually assumptions, there's one thing they say, assumptions make an ass out of you and me. The last couple of things here is, what time is it? I guess I wrote that down because it's important. Because even if you have a great idea, if there's no window of opening for you to actually express your idea, it's like ramming your head against a brick wall. You will ram it from here to Jericho, and you'll get nothing out of it. So knowing what time you are in. If I'm trying to tell you a story, I'm really in my 60s, even though I'm 27 here, and I don't understand what time it is for you guys. Do you understand what I mean by what time it is? Then I can't resonate with you guys. I'll just be telling you stories, and often they say as you grow old, and I increasingly hear this thing, you start reminiscing, you start saying, do you remember? But really, this isn't a... So do you know what time it is? Do you know what is important to the average Ghanaian? If you're trying to be a social media influencer in Accra, do you know what time it is for people in Wa? Do you know what time it is for people in Kumasi? Because if you don't know what time they are working on or what's going on for them, then your influence is going neither here nor there. And it's a bit like me meeting you in the car park and saying, I need a bank loan. And you go like, hey, yeah, you need a bank loan. Okay. I said, but I didn't come inside the bank to talk to the bank manager about a bank loan. I'm not going to get a bank loan. So if you don't know what time it is for the people you're trying to speak to, you won't be able to influence them. So I think these are a few things. And one of the things I will say, as I come to sort of the last piece of this, is the value of dialogue. Because often you see things from your perspective. Are you listening to what other people are saying? Because if you don't listen and you just talk, somebody will often say to you, talk to the hand, because you're just spouting. And often you'll end up in that noisy space. You don't know who you should be speaking to. You want a bank loan. If you go to the market down there and start saying, I want a bank loan, you're part of the noise, because the people who are listening, who you need to listen to you about your bank loan, aren't there. There's a representative of the government here. If you want Nana Akufo-Addo to change something, if you're not talking to his people, you're not going to bring about that change. So knowing who your audience is and really figuring that out is really important. So like I said, okay, so if all of this is true in whatever kind of influencing I'm doing, what are the characteristics I need? This last piece. You need confidence. Nobody communicates. You know those people who communicate with a question mark after what they say? You know, I think maybe you're not going to sell anything to me when you're thinking that it might be correct. So you have to have confidence, and that confidence comes from all the things I told you earlier. But that confidence can't stray into arrogance. It has to stay in the realms of humility. Because if it's like everybody else is talking rubbish, you're switching people off literally by saying that. So and remember, the people you actually want to convince are the people who don't agree with you. Because on the things we agree, we're going to walk very easily. So it's actually the things we don't agree about that we need to be spending time doing. And it's that combination of knowing, confidence, humility, that is core to trust. Because actually, those of you who have achieved great success, have 1 million+ followers, one of the things, your crown jewels, is trust. People trust you, and they trust you for a reason. And actually, it's all these attributes that build that trust. And remember, when you come back to brand, there's a curve, there's no flip chart here. But trust is built in steps like this. But when trust is broken, you go back to the beginning, and you start again. And before you get to the next step up, you have a long period to go to. So better to start humble. I've often said to people, and biblically in that sense, he that is down need fear no fall. Stay humble. Nobody will take anything from you. You can be whoever you think you are. Just stay humble. The world will love you. And remember too that we are trying to create space. For this continent, particularly for young people on this continent, people don't have a voice. So be a space creator, which means you are aggregating, you're enabling people to come in, you're listening, you're hearing people's thoughts. You can even be such an aggregator that, in fact, none of you, if you listen well enough, you don't even have to have any original ideas yourself. You will hear those ideas coming, and you'll be able to shape them and influence people with them by creating the space, and then people will flow into that space, rather than blocking the space because actually you want to be the king. And even in music and in many industries where competition actually thrives, you hear of collaboration. So find the influencers around you who will be collaborating with you. And in that, prepare for opposition. I often say to young people, there are 3 skills you need to actually survive. The first is knowledge. If you have knowledge, if you don't have knowledge, in this economy that we live in now, you're literally wasting time, because knowledge is the key. The second thing you need is networks. So if you're busy plugging people out, you're not going to build a network. And the third thing you need is resilience. You will not succeed most of the time. But actually, that's not failure, that's learning. You will hear all those cliche things, but you will learn a lot from just listening to opposition, because actually that's how you will hone your thoughts and overcome objection. If you do Salesforce 101, the first part of it is how to overcome objection. I want to sell you this, but I don't have money. Okay, let me show you how you have money. but I don't like the product. Okay, let me tell you why the product is really good. So build the capacity to deal with opposition because it's important. Be disciplined. They say the bridge to success is discipline. This is not going to be easy work. You may be a natural, you have brilliant ideas, but you still need to be disciplined in the way that you deliver those ideas. 3 key things about how you must be. Always inspiring, always inspiring, because people respond better to inspiration than they do to threat. Carrot and stick. Always the carrot. Be empathetic. Empathy requires you to understand the perspective of another person. And some of the most effective tools we have today, the mobile phone, the existence of a screen. I don't know, you must have heard of human-centered design. If you haven't, you need to understand human-centered design. It is that I'm designing something that works for who I'm designing it for. And so you test, and you hear, and you take feedback, and you improve. And that's how the best things in life are built. And so have that approach to it. And sometimes express it as tough love. You know, the tweet I just shared, Joaba obviously does tell people, I block you. Because the noise is too much and it actually distracts. So not every person, not every opposition is good for you. So figure out how to issue some tough love sometimes, because some of the best ideas will not come because you're loved. They'll come because actually you're making a point, but actually it's a difficult pill for people to swallow. Those of you who are born in the right generation, there's something called Resuchin to cure malaria, quinine, the most ghastly stuff you can ever taste in this life. And doctors made it really bad. They turned it into a syrup. So as a young child, you had to swallow this dastardly syrup, but it made you better in the long run. So learn to have tough love. I've talked about integrity. We live in a world of fake news. AI is making it impossible now to even discern what is true from what is not true. And so don't be a spreader of fake news. Don't be a spreader of disinformation. Sitting closely behind that and really dangerously is hate speech that will ultimately cause harm. And that's a really important thing not to be part of. So do no harm. Whether you're selling Nespresso, be honest about it. Chimamanda, in one of her, Chimamanda Adichie says, if you tell me only part of the truth, you are actually telling me a lie. Until I know the whole truth, then I know it's true. So if you're selling a product, these are the upsides, these are the downsides. Those of you who watch American ads, you know the downsides. They run through it. They find somebody who can speak really fast. And he says, oh, and this may kill you, and this may do this, and this may do this, and it's approved by the FDA, really slowly. So learn how to be honest in what you say. Take a long-term view about influencing, because it's such a powerful thing. You can be the change makers of the world. And so are you going to be the change makers for good, or the change makers who damage the world? And have an entrepreneurial mindset. I keep saying this, there is no space in which an entrepreneurial mindset does not exist. You have to be entrepreneurial to figure out, for those of you who do this professionally, how are my income streams going to happen? How am I going to monetize this? While holding on to all these values and principles that I've just espoused here. You're going to need to be a super navigator and entrepreneurial in your style and your approach. So I guess those are the thoughts I had. And remember that in everything that people do, if you choose this as a career or it's your hobby, that at the end of the day, you need to be successful, but you also need to take care of you as a person. Because all of this that I've told you, if you really do it properly, you're going to be busy all day long. So you need to stop, you need to pause, you need to come up for air. You need to remember not to take yourself too seriously every single time, and actually learn to have fun and relax. And I wish you the best on your journey as you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. His Excellency Charles Tabani. So how many of us are going to be influencers of positive change after this speech? Everybody. But you know, His Excellency mentioned that there's a representative of the government in the House. And if we want to change the government, we have to start by speaking to people who can influence the president. So let me start, because I know there are people here that have a lot of things that they want to tell Presido. You know, like, let's start with the fuel. They think I will talk. If you like, off the mic, I can shout. I have a powerful voice, African woman's voice. If I start here, I don't want to point him yet, but let me say it because he's listening. I'll soon call him out. Please tell Presido that the fuel price is affecting long-distance relationships. By that, I mean relationships between Kaswa and East Legon. It's a struggle. Now you have to date within your area because the fuel is expensive. Now your spouses have to travel within Accra to see you. It's a problem. Also, another thing we would like to tell him, because his reps are here, Abi, youth of Ghana. The bet, no, the tax. I don't bet, but it's affecting people I know that bet. It's affecting their emotions. It's affecting my friendships. The tax on the bet. We have a lot to talk about, but it's okay. On that note, I'll be moving straight to our next speaker. Thank you so much, His Excellency. Please, a round of applause for him once again. Okay, my next speaker is a very influential personality. He's a politician, a media personality. See this combination alone. On top of it, he's the Deputy Director of Communication for the Office of the President. Did I hear a wow? Yeah. And he's also a parliamentary candidate under the NPP for the Ablekuma Central constituency. How many of you here know your constituencies? We don't know. We just know the president. And so, yes, this fine gentleman is the parliamentary candidate for the Ablekuma Central constituency. We hope he wins so that I can brag that I know somebody in power. It's not easy. And he'll be speaking to us on the topic, the role of social media in national development. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Mr. Jefferson Saki. Thank you.
She did it last year, done it this year too. Excellency, thank you for the foundation that you've laid for us. I think it gives us the opportunity to say what we want to say and then also develop our points. I think one of the key things you said, or a statement you made, is that influence is leadership. And for many of us here, I'm sure we have people who are following us. A couple of you have about 100,000, 500,000, 1 million, and all that. So you should know that you are leading such a large number of people. And so whatever you put on your social media platform or whatever you say on there goes very far. For us, growing up in the 1970s and 80s, I think that we are the luckiest generation, because we were torn between the generation of social media existence and social media non-existence. I remember very well when my father returned from Nigeria, somewhere in 1989 or so. That was the time that, telephone, in fact, mobile phone was kind of being seen in our part of the world. His phone that he was using then was Nokia 101. And I'm sure most of you have not even heard of Nokia 101. Just Google and see the size of Nokia 101. And that was the phone that perhaps you may need a school bag to carry when you're going somewhere. But that was the generation that I think we learned a lot of things. Television in our country was just one television station. I remember in 1983, 84, it was only GTV or GBC. You wake up in the morning, there is a particular time that the TV station would have to come on. It's either starting at 6 a.m. and by 6 p.m. there is no television. You have to go and sleep. And for us who witnessed that kind of generation and the existence of the new generation that we are seeing today, where today you can sit in your room and talk to millions and millions of people. In school, when I was in JSS then, I remember it was then Pen Pal. How many of you here know of Pen Pal? Yes. In fact, you need somebody to give you an address of somebody living in Finland, and then you will take your time and write a letter on a sheet of paper and then post it. You go to the post office and you post. And those times, the mail would have to be picked, taken to the airport, take a flight all the way to Europe. And so for one statement or for one question that you need answered, it may take you a month, 4 weeks, sometimes 2 months, before the person will also reply or write to you. Today, it's a different story altogether. It's just a tap, and you're on Facebook. You can search anybody and everybody, and they would appear, and instant communication is possible. I think this is the luckiest generation ever in the history of mankind, and we have to, clap for ourselves for being part of this generation. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is important that we know who we are as influencers and the things we do. Who are we? When we post things on our social media platforms, who are we influencing? What information are we getting out there, or are we putting out there? I want to give you 9 pointers that will remind us of who we are, so that anytime you pick up your phone or go on social media and you want to send an information out there, you know the kinds of people and the impact that you are trying to make. 1, we amplify voices. We, as social media influencers, we amplify voices. Social media provides a platform for marginalized voices to be heard. It empowers individuals to share their experiences, raise awareness about pertinent issues, and demand change. And so, as influencers, your ability to amplify these voices can accelerate the process of addressing societal inequalities and injustices. 2, we foster dialogue and collaboration. And this is a very important point. The power of social media lies in its ability to facilitate open dialogue and constructive conversations. As influencers, your engagement in meaningful discussions can bridge gaps, cultivate understanding, and drive consensus on critical matters, contributing to the overall growth and harmony of our own nation. 3, spurring innovation. Always remember that innovation thrives in an environment of connectivity and collaboration. Through social media, ideas can be shared, critiqued, and refined rapidly, leading to the emergence of novel solutions to complex problems. And I want to give you an example of what Ambassador said, for example, today. We have issues all around the world, and one of the most important things that is very recent and very close to us is the situation in Niger. In the waiting room, we were having a discussion. That why now? Why should even West African, sub-regional leaders be thinking of going into Niger, to intervene in the military situation and out there? You have the power to bring ideas. And mind you, we are in a certain moment in our world, in our lifetime, that the leaders of our time have realized the importance of social media. And so don't think that when you tweet or you put something, the last resort, when diplomacy has failed, when our UN head and various leaders have sat down and talked about it, and it is not working, that is the only way that the West African sub-leaders are telling us that they would do or go into Niger for military intervention. And so remember that you have a say. Your voice can be heard depending on how you use your social media handles. 4, promoting civic engagement. Active citizen participation is the cornerstone of a healthy democracy. Social media platforms offer a direct line of communication between citizens and their government, enabling real-time feedback and accountability. Your role as influencers is pivotal in encouraging your followers to become informed and engaged citizens, shaping the direction of national policies. 5, which is very important and common to all of us, access to information and knowledge. Your platform serves as an information hub. Always bear that in mind. You are granting people access to a wide range of knowledge and perspectives by sharing accurate, relevant, and well-researched information. You can empower your followers to make an informed decision, fostering a society that values education and critical thinking. 6, advocacy and awareness. Your influence extends beyond likes and shares. You should bear in mind that for somebody to like something that you have posted, it means that the person has consumed it, whether negatively or positively. So always bear in mind that you are an advocate for change. 7, economic empowerment. People would ask how. Today, people can sit in their rooms, not go on the street at all, and sell. You bear with me. We do not need to go to Papaye or Frankie's, or we do not need to walk there. We just have to be in our rooms, and then every purchases, every business, every transaction that we want to engage in happens. Today, we have millionaires because of social media. They do not even have to go out to do any transaction. But because of the positivity and their business-mindedness, they are able to make money for themselves. And so social media offers entrepreneurial opportunities to individuals and businesses alike by highlighting success stories, providing business insights, and promoting responsible consumerism. You can contribute to economic growth and empowerment at local and national levels. 8, cultural exchange and understanding. On social media, I can go and Google Yoruba in Nigeria, and then I'll know everything about the culture of the people of Yoruba. Somebody can sit in New York City and determine exactly what is happening today. In fact, today Homo is starting in the Greater Accra region. The people are celebrating and all that. Because of social media, because of your influences, because of the tweets that you will put on your social media handles, people beyond our shores, in Beijing, in China, in Nairobi, in Kenya, everywhere in the world, they would have an idea of what is happening. And so if you want to promote your culture, your handles are the best medium to do that. And finally, and most importantly, and I think His Excellency highlighted on that, mobilizing for positive change. Whether it's a disaster, relief efforts, social campaigns, or grassroots movements, social media has the power to mobilize people for positive change. Your influence can spark online movement that transition into real-world impact, driving societal progress. And there have been several examples. The story of George Floyd, it was as a result of our new tool, which is social media, which is mobile phones, that was able to change the world that we are seeing today. And as a result of that, Black Lives Matter was invented or came out of that. And the social intervention that happened there, that should tell you the influence that we all wield, and we have to use it positively. It's crucial to recognize that with great power comes great responsibility, no matter how we look at it. Misinformation, cyberbullying, and the amplification of negativity and challenges we must navigate carefully. As influencers, your commitment to ethical practices, fact-checking, and fostering a healthy online environment is pivotal to ensuring that social media remains a force for good. Excellency, I think you said a lot. And so I would want to conclude on this message that I have for you for this 2023 Influencers Conference. I urge you to embrace your role as agents of change. Your voice can shape perception, inspire action, and steer our nation towards a brighter future. Let us work together to leverage the potential of social media as a catalyst for national development, promoting unity, progress, and positive transformation. To end it all and to wrap it all, I would want to say a big congratulations to organizers of this particular program. In fact, this is the first and the biggest, I should say, gathering of influencers from across the country and around our continent. In fact, people, I started with, I remember when we started media and journalism, people like Ameyaw Deborah and myself. In fact, we were lucky to be, the 2002 Africa Rising ambassadors, for Malta Guinness. Everything that we were doing with regards to social media was just a dream. It was an ambition. We were trying to build things up. Today, Ameyaw Deborah is Ameyaw Deborah only because of social media. And so you can be you through the power of social media. Let's use it positively. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it safe to call you Honorable? Thank you, Honorable. Thank you so much. He said you can be you through the power of social media. We've seen a lot of people become people thanks to social media. So why can't you also become something positive? Thank you so much, Honorable Member of Parliament in waiting. All right, so he said, Presido scrolls through his phone every morning. And I was wasting my time sending a message when I can just drop the message myself and he will see it. So now that we know that he sees everything we do, if you met the president today, what would you even want to tell him? What would you want to ask him? I see a lot of people with their iPads, iPhones, notepads, notebooks, writing, putting things down. And I know you have questions to ask. You've put down things. His Excellency is here. He'll be answering a few questions. We can take only but a few because, we have other speakers who are waiting. And of course, Mr. Saki is also here to also answer questions. We'll take as much as we can so that we move on to the next item on our program. We have a poet here who would also be influencing us after this session. So please, poet, wherever you are, get ready. Please, questions. Our two speakers are ready and willing to answer you. Kindly put your hands up. Good, we have our first.
All right,
Okay.
so my name is Akins from Influencer Hub. I would want to ask, how do you deal with doubts from your own self, self-doubt, and doubt from the outside world? Yeah.
Okay. Who's the question for?
I mean, both.
Any of them?
Yeah.
Okay. Self-doubts.
Let them ask a number of questions.
Yes.
Why don't you ask a range of
Yes.
questions?
First question, self-doubt. Next question, please. I think that's a very pertinent question because a lot of people really don't believe in themselves. A lot of young people tend to feel like, oh, I can't make it. Who am I? My father was a carpenter. Why would I be a lawyer? Questions, please. Feel free. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Fad Abubakar. My question goes to an honorable member. It has got to do with an influencer having an anxiety when it comes to his line of work, how he deals with it. And my second question has to do with fact checks. When informations are put out there on social media or maybe on print media, how do you go about getting your fact checks? Thank you.
Okay. More questions? Okay.
All right, so still Akins from Influence Hub. So I want to ask that what is more important? Is it innovation or integrity? What is more important? Thank you.
Okay. 2-in-1 question. Okay. Are the women not asking questions? It's men. Okay.
The government, maybe generally, looking at something that they can do. How can we make the society, social media, more acceptable and adaptable for people who want to work with social media? Also looking at how we can make money. Are there ideas to put some policies in place to ensure that people are safe when they are working on social media and also maybe make money too? Thank you.
Okay, well, great. Kindly give them.
Thank you, and lots of really interesting questions. So let me tell you a story. When Yemi and Co came and said to me, "Hey, Charles, we'd like you to be keynote speaker," I also said, "What do I know about social? What do I know about influencing?" Right? So there's something called imposter syndrome, and the best people suffer from imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Do I know enough? If anything, take it as a strength. It actually shows that you're balancing your confidence with your humility. Remember, I talked about that. Because really, if you think you know it all, you probably don't. Another quote for you from Malcolm Gladwell that simply says, you know, the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know. And so if you come at things from that perspective, you will be better. The second thing to deal with that, and I guess it also helps with anxiety too, is practice. If you think Obama turned up on the podium without practice, then you have another thing coming. This morning, I have a special guest who's actually in town. And we were talking about things generally, and she's done 3 TED Talks. And she said, listen, the kind of planning some people put into their TED Talks, the kind of rehearsal they do in order to be that slick, actually, it's not even real. Because by the end, they are just repeating what they've crammed into their heads, and actually, so they're not speaking with passion, they're not speaking from the heart, they're too scared. So being scared is not a bad thing to have. And actually, it's a good moral check for you. If I'm about to spout rubbish, am I sure? Because you shouldn't be spreading fake news. I mean, Jefferson's just spoken about the power that you have. If you have 1 million followers, there are no million constituents who are even going to vote for you. There are not up to 1 million people who vote for him. His power is much less than your own. you're unaccountable in a sense, because actually none of them can even hold you. If you even put somebody's picture on your social media page, in fact, they can't even identify who you are. You could be a guy with a woman's face. You could be a woman with a guy's face. And nobody will ever be able to identify you. So be very careful about the power that you have. Innovation versus integrity. None trumps each other, I don't think. I think integrity is about the core values that you bring to anything that you do. You know, many people talk about, you know, integrity, respect for other people. Respect, because all these things are built into the person that you are, the kind of humility that you'll end up showing. If you don't respect other people, you don't have that value, then you'll treat people like shit, basically. And so, but at the same time, we all want to do things better, and there is nothing that cannot be done better. Remember that statement on excellence, never settle. If people settled, we'd all be watching TVs that were fat and big and ugly and clunky, but someone said we can improve this. That's how we got from black and white to colored. Then we got to where we got to now, to the point where basically you'll have something, I don't know, stuck in your head here, where ultimately you pick and choose. Imagine some of us, I know we're not exactly of the same generation, but then, you know, you got to the point where someone was saying, okay, you can pause live TV. And I'm a football fan. You know, you pause live TV. Before, you won't go anywhere. In fact, if God forbid you feel like going to the toilet during an Arsenal match. Sorry, I'm an Arsenal fan. You'll be like, it will stay there until